pray where you just kind of let wash over you. But since we talked about breath work, what I'd love to do is just take a second. Sometimes you come to church, park the car, especially on a rainy day, you rush in here. They used to do this in monasteries. When you would arrive, the monks would believe that, yeah, your body is shown up, but sometimes it takes your soul just a little bit longer to be present, to kind of be here, to kind of understand that we come here for something important, which is community, which is this one time in our week where we kind of talk about what matters most. So what I'd like you to do, if you feel comfortable, and you absolutely don't have to do this, but if you can, close your eyes. And I'd just like you to take a deep breath. And again, you can open your eyes, you can look at a fixed point if you don't feel comfortable. But I'm going to ask you just to breathe in for 4 seconds with me. So breathe in, hold your breath for 2, and breathe out for 8 full seconds. One more. Let's breathe in for 4. Hold for 2, and breathe out for 8 full seconds. I'm just going to ask you to catch your breath, and I'm going to read this quick reading. Trust in the slow work of God. Above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything, to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown, something new. And yet it is the law of all progress that it is made passing through some stages of instability, and that it may take a very long time. And so I think it is with us. Our ideas mature gradually. Let them grow. Let them shape themselves without undue haste. Don't try to force them on as though you could be what time, that is to say, grace and circumstances acting on your own goodwill, will make of you tomorrow. Only God could say what this new spirit gradually forming within you will be. So give God the benefit of believing that God's hand is leading you, and accept the anxiety of feeling yourself in suspense and maybe even incomplete. You can open your eyes back into the space. That's by Teilhard de Chardin. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But I love that line there that says, time is grace and circumstances acting on your own goodwill. And today I want to talk a lot about time, just this idea of what we live through, how we view time, how it affects us, how things like grief can affect the way that we view time. And actually, to start, I wasn't going to do this, but the live stream is down, so this one stays right here. Is that cool with everyone? It will affect my it probably won't, but it's something I need to come clean with anyway. I was thinking about time, and I was like, what's a good way to and then I was like, oh my God, this works perfect. I just told this story to our friend Emma, who's in town. I have this situation at work. So I've been working at this job for 3.5 years now. The 2 bosses that I have are 2 of my closest friends in the world. But when we started out, it was us 3 in this office, and we were building furniture together. We were literally painting walls. We spent a lot of time together. And I was in a really people-pleasy sort of mood. I was just, I'll do anything, whatever you need, because I literally hated the job that I came from before. This was a huge bump up, and so I was going to do anything I could, night and day. I will be there and I will do it. And one day I remember we're setting up this couch, and Ashley, who's one of my bosses, is talking to me, and she's explaining how she's gluten-free. Any gluten-free people in the house? Yeah, excellent. So she goes through I'm good, I can't, if I can. And I was like, oh, do you go to Modern Bread and Bagel? We have one of those in Santa Monica. There's one in Woodland Hills. Anyway, I don't need to get into Modern Bread Bagel, but she's like, yeah, how do you know about that? And I was like, oh, it's around, we love it. And then she goes, is Chelsea, your wife, gluten-free? And I don't know why I answered like this, but I was like, yeah, Chelsea is not gluten-free at all. It was just this automatic response back from I think addict days, where I was like, moving closer to you, maybe. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm just never gonna bring that up again. She brings it up once a month. Once a month, there is some conversation where she's, and then Chelsea probably deals with that. I'm like, literally, so 3.5 years, they came to our house for the first time. And I had to prep, it was a party that we were throwing, and I had to prep Chelsea. I was like, look, this is going to sound so epically strange, but you're going to have to act like you're gluten-free this season.
Oh my God. then she was like, what? And then she got her best friend in on it, and like literally there were questions. They were like, where are the gluten-free options? And Josh was like, right here. I do this all the time. And I was like, this has gone so far. So if anything, this is so nice just to say out loud. It's been too much time, right? And that is the way that I will wrap that in. It's been way too much time. One day I will just casually be like, this happened. I'm sure she'll laugh about it like that. Or she'll just look at, she might be, yeah. But it's down, so that's why I feel safe in here.
Tell her that God healed her.
We'll do the ultra weird, and then I can pray for you too.
Call her now. Call her.
Let's get into time. Now we can get lost in it, all that good stuff. This is Ecclesiastes 3, which you probably heard before. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, a time to hate. A time for war, a time for peace. What do workers gain from all their toil? I have seen the burden of God has laid everything on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I think, if you've grown up in church, you've been around church a while, if you've ever attended a funeral service, this gets read a lot, so you may have heard this. What I think is interesting is we never really include that last little chunk of text there, that bit about eternity. That God has set this idea of eternity in our hearts, and that original idea for eternity, and some of our evangelical antennas are going up like, uh-oh, is he about to talk about heaven? Some of our, the original intent of that word eternity actually means the fullness of time. That God has set this idea of the fullness of time in our hearts, and that's what we operate from. It's interesting being in America. We tend to commoditize time. So we talk about time like it's a resource, right? Like it's a value system. So we spend our time, or you wasted your time, right? In other cultures, that's completely different. I grew up in Holland for a while when I was a kid, and they don't say spend time or waste time. They will say I was with that person. So what we'd say is like I spent an hour with that person. They'd say I was with that person for an hour. Or there's just a different way of doing it. In fact, in Latin and in Italian now too, it's the same thing. You wouldn't say like that I spent an hour with someone or that I wasted the day away. You would say it took an hour or it was there. It's not something that we control so much. And in biblical times and in the context that this was written, time wasn't viewed like that at all. In fact, time was invented in a monastery. It was St. Benedict set up a sundial with a bell on it. It wasn't mechanized at all. It was like one monk's job to watch that sundial and let it go around and go ding. And what would happen when the bell would go is that whatever the monk was doing, no matter what, you're in the middle of your sentence, you're like, and you would switch and you would go to the next task. If you were writing in the middle of that sentence, you would stop, you put down the quill, you'd move to the next task. And the idea wasn't to regiment like on military time, it was actually to remind the monks that they were on God's time and not their own. I think about this in my life all the time. What are the bells for me? It could be my daughter crying. It could be a text. It could be a call that I want to pick up. It's those little reminders that I can go, I can kind of live my life in that rhythm. Because I can remember like the thought that originally will come is like, I don't have time for that, I can't do this. But when we embrace that like, oh, not on my own time, we usually find there's enough time. There's enough time to take that call. There's enough time to bend down and spend an extra second with your kid. There's just time built into the system. And that comes from that idea of the fullness of time. In the first chapter of Mark, this thing called the gospel is proclaimed. And the gospel is a really heavy sort of religious word that most of us have kind of heard before. What the gospel just means is it's good news. It's what we do here every day. And what the gospel is proclaimed is like the time has come, and what that really translates to is the fulfillment of time has come. So the fullness of time is here. Repent, turn around, whatever language you want for that. But the main point of it is this is one of those thin moments where the fullness of time has actually appeared, where we're standing in something yes, it's felt like forever until this moment, but this moment is actually arrived. It's here. In Greek, there are two words for time. One is chronos, and that's where we get the word chronological. So that's like, time on a clock. And then the other word for it is kairos, which means deep time. And that's that fullness of time sort of moment there. It's those moments where you like lose yourself in something, like you're doing something you absolutely love, and then you look up at the clock and you're like, how's it been like 3 hours? If you have ADHD like myself, you're naturally time blind, which means that this is most of the time. You're just like, oh my God, how did 4 hours go? But when we're doing something we actually enjoy, or we're with people that we actually love, we kind of float under something where we're not feeling those seconds or those minutes, those hours tick by. We're just fully in it, And I think the flip there in kairos and chronos is chronos, we use time. In kairos, we go with time. So we are going alongside how time is naturally moving, how seasons flow, all that goodness. And it's important to understand that when we're going through either the best times in our life or the worst times in our life. That I'm going through this thing, this sort of like word that we all stopped using called seasons. Remember? Did anybody grow up in the 90s in church? Like, you're just in a season? What does that mean? What they were talking about is like kairos time. They're in this moment in your life, and you trying to like push or pull that moment, that's not really going to help you so much as just living. Like, this is your life. Live your life in that moment, in that deepness, in that time. I sat with a person that I was working with, and this was a few years ago. But this is the first time this really came on my radar, where you have these like moments in time where we can do deep work, or really connected to something bigger that you just don't have access to maybe on like a Monday morning, like on your way to work or something like that. It was the anniversary of her husband's passing, and she woke up that day. I saw her the day before, and then I saw her that day. And that day she just woke up in grief. And she was like, I don't understand, I've been doing all of this work, and she had for like a year. She'd been doing grief work in all these different modalities. And she was like, I was fine yesterday, and then I woke up today, I realized what day it was, and then I was just wrecked. It feels like I've taken like 20 steps back. And what occurred to me in that moment is I was like, no, I think it's not 20 steps back. I think it's actually like, you've been doing all of this work all this year for this day, and for your body, your brain, your heart to kind of recognize, oh my goodness, it's real. And you kind of like, it's like a shy animal in a cave. You've coaxed this thing out, and all the conditions are perfect, and now your grief is just kind of there. And you're able to see it, and you're able to interact with it in a different way, and maybe a deeper way. And it's painful, but maybe this is really one of those kairos deep time moments where we can really fundamentally see what's going on. It's kind of these moments where time begins to like stack on each other. I had a moment like this last week. It was Easter, for those of you who attended, and we were at the Nocturne Theater. It's this big, beautiful theater. For like tech, it's that you have to take literally everything from this place and move it over to there. And so we got here at like 6 in the morning. Shout out to Johnny for getting here at 6 in the morning. And we packed up a bunch of stuff, and then we left, and it was this marathon run. But I walked outside the booth, because I'd just been in like, marathon, go mode. And then I walked outside the booth, and it's in the round, there are hundreds of us. It's like seeing this whole community in one room. And Paul's leading this like beautiful choir, and cello player, and violin player, and all these vocalists. And I was struck, I was way up at the top, and I was struck with the fact that I could almost not hear the instruments. I could hear all the voices around me, all the people singing these songs, and it just was this big sort of emotional moment where I was like, we're joining, like it's one of those crazy, we're joining in with something that's going on. It's like we're in the flow of something, and no one there was checking their watch, see, when's this song gonna end, when's the next thing gonna go? And then I left there, And I was in the car going home. I just had this like joy. Like I was like, that was a full experience. I'm so glad I got to experience that with people I love, all that. And I'm in the car and I get a call from my mom. And my mom tells me that my grandmother has passed away. And this was just 13 days before my grandfather had passed away. I guess I feel like every time I come up here and talk to you all, someone has passed away. I'm just gonna tell Corey I cannot preach anymore. But if you're tired of it, so am I. But in that moment, I went from like pure ecstasy to like shock and wow. I'm an emotional late hitter, is what I've learned in lots of therapy, and so I was like, this probably isn't gonna hit me for a couple days. So I'm just gonna keep moving through the day, just kind of processing, thinking. Talked to my mom for a really long time. She's a late hitter too, so it's just two people literally talking about work. It was the weirdest, yeah. Anyway, I go home, and Gracie, my daughter, is now old enough that we could do like an Easter egg hunt in our backyard. And I realized, like, she's picking out these eggs, and she's so joyous. She's in the beginning of her life, and her middle name is Elizabeth, named after my grandmother. And then, right then, like a flash, I remembered that, like, exactly 6 years from this date, I woke up in a detox from alcoholism. And all of that starts flooding in at once, and I kind of realized in that moment, like, I'm standing in one of these thin spaces in the deepness of time. And I took a deep breath and just began to step into that moment, into that day, with all of it. All the grief, all the weirdness, all the joy, all the ecstasy. And even though it was a really ridiculously hard day, it's one of the days that I felt the most alive in my life. Just feeling these ups and these downs. Is anything that we do to try and mute ourselves from those ups and those downs and the fullness of life takes us away from exactly that. It takes us away from the full experience of our humanity. I think that as we walk forward, we need to find ways and rhythms and rituals and practices that allow us to really take hold of that fullness of time. Because the beauty of the fullness of time is like, we're just going through it. We can't stop it. We can't control it. We can't freeze it. We're all just moving through. So with that, I'd love you to get back in your groups and just talk about this. How can you practice living in the fullness of time this week?